Time for me to get my guests on the show. Andrew Collister joins me from Chennai. Ashok Malhotra joins me from Kolkata. I'm also joined by Rakesh Patel from England. Andrew, good evening to you. Tim Paine expects an unusually tame series to boil over in Sydney.
Yes, good evening, Rika. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, maybe he does. I think it's been quite friendly so far. And I think it may be also talking to his own players as much as, talking about the wider situation. He's presented a different Australia since taking over as captain, but I think he knows that the Australian team, the Australian public, they still want to win. And yeah, I think they need a bit of fire in their bellies after losing pretty meekly in Melbourne.
Mr. Malhotra, Indians, in fact, sources from the Indian team saying that they do not want to be treated like animals in a zoo. Do you see this is an unlikely Indian side?
Yes, Rika, I'm also sitting in a quarantine. I can tell you it is very, very painful. And those people have been there for nearly 3 to 4 months. It must be playing on their mind. And, every time when you have covered your quarantine period, again, you have to be back into quarantine. It must be painful to say the least. But as you said, both the teams don't want to give an inch. And as I said before, Australians play well when they sledge. And now looks like the sledging is coming. And the 12th man, the press of Australia, is also coming into the play. So it seems like the series is boiling over, and we can see some exciting cricket now.
Right, there is a lot of spice thrown in now into the series. And let me get in a true blue Aussie here, Glenn McGrath, on what he says about Indians being miffed with the quarantine protocols.
The Indian players have said that they don't want to be treated like animals in a zoo, and this is in respect to the quarantine situation when everyone is going out in Sydney and everyone's leading a free life. They are being subjected to quarantine. Would you say that, all these things will really spill onto the field and there's going to be a lot more chatter?
I don't think so. I think a lot of these players played in the IPL recently over in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and they were in bubbles and over there a lot more than they probably have been in Australia. So at the end of the day, they've been there before. You do what you have to do, and to continue, to be allowed to play on the game. That's the most important thing. So we've got to keep it in perspective. The last thing we want is any of the players contracting COVID. I think the players' safety on top of the public safety is very important. So this isn't something new to the players. For the whole IPL, they were in bubbles over there and in lockdown. So it's not something new to them. So I don't think it'll be a big issue on the field.
Rakesh, perhaps McGrath has a fair point that the series will be under threat if players contract COVID. But the fans will also be there in the stadium, even though they will be socially distanced. Is it fair to allow them inside the stadium when there have been a rise in COVID infections?
Well, compared to the first 2 tests and actually even the white ball series, this particular test is going to be in completely different conditions to what we've seen in the past. We've already had our ticket allocations drastically cut. We've been told that we have to wear face masks in the stadium. We tested before we enter the stadium. So this particular test match will look completely different to, how the first 2 test matches looked in terms of the conditions for the fans. So, I think it's the right thing to do, to take the right precautions to make sure that everyone's safety is of paramount. And if that means there's less fans in the stadium, so be it. At least we're still getting cricket played, So I think the players' safety and the fans' safety and well-being is the paramount importance. And I think, Cricket Australia are taking the right steps to make sure that takes place.
Andrew, the temperature this time around is nowhere near the Sydney Test of 2008. But would you say that the Indians are downplaying it? There is a simmering discontent?
I don't know. I wouldn't want to overplay it at the same time. I think the discontent, if there is there, as we said before, it's not on the field, it's off the field. And I think, as Ashok said, that you know, quarantine is hard. They've been living in bubbles for months. They're doing it in Australia. They were able to get out in Melbourne, I saw. They were able to get out, which was great. But I think we've all done periods of quarantine over the last 10 months, and it is difficult. And look, I mean, I think the important thing is the cricket has been played and it's been done safely. And, you know, there may be some simmering discontent, but I think this is a lot better than it would have been had there been a cancellation or if there'd been a clash on field. I think, as the others have said, that, you know, this is discontent, but I wouldn't overplay it once they get onto the field.
Mr. Malhotra, do you think that the Indians are downplaying this issue in the public? They're not talking that much in the public about their discontent, just so that they don't get distracted from their main aim, which is to win the match?
Absolutely. You know, main aim is to win the match, win the series. And the way they have regrouped, the way they have come back, I know they are maybe discontented, but the fact is they are on the job. They know what their job is, and they are kind of regrouped and they're focused. The good thing is they're very, very focused under Ajinkya Rahane, and they seem to be on the right track. And another thing, Rekha, is that the Brisbane test. Australians want to play in Brisbane. Maybe Indians are not too keen to play in Brisbane because the history says Australia has a good record in Brisbane, whereas Indians struggle in Brisbane. So that is another bone of contention.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what Glenn McGrath says. Listen in.
It's going to be interesting with what happens after Sydney, and there's been a little bit of talk about Brisbane, and that's pretty much because up at the Gabba in Brisbane, Australia hasn't lost there for a long, long time. It's a strong ground for Australia, and been very dominant. And I don't think India have played Brisbane for a long time. So to be honest, I was a little surprised to start with that was in the schedule. But with COVID and with lockdowns, I guess there wasn't too many other possibilities. But who knows, that it might be a few talking points out in the middle for the boys, but we'll wait and see what happens. And, you know, with COVID and the restrictions and the lockdowns, it's made it quite tough. There's only 25% of the crowd coming along to the SCG. At one stage, we thought there'd be no one in the crowd, and it's been great that crowd has been able to come. Just the atmosphere it creates is something quite special. We saw the IPL where there was no crowds, even though the games were still went on well, and there was some good competition out the middle. The boys that I've spoken to said, and even the commentators said, that atmosphere was lacking, and that's a big part of the game. So hopefully, there won't be any outbreaks in Sydney, and everything will be kept under control. And then, off they go to Brisbane. But there's going to be certain restrictions up there too, which is going to make life a little bit tougher. But the modern day cricketer has to be adaptable, and especially now with COVID, even more so, they have to be adaptable, not only on the field, off the field, with playing in the bubble, with being in certain lockdowns and quarantine and things like that. Unfortunately, that's the way of the world at the moment.
Indeed.
And the modern day cricketer has to be able to be adaptable and cope with it.
Right. Rakesh, coming to you, are you surprised that Virat Kohli, who embodies the aggressive and vocal side, is not with the team? Ajinkya Rahane, who has rarely found himself in positions of argument and partaking in banter battles. In fact, he is in the middle of all of this. Recently, an Indian squad member has expressed his discontent over the bio-bubble.
Yeah, first of all, I think that Virat Kohli's decision is a personal decision. I don't think anyone can ever challenge the commitment of Virat Kohli that he's given to the Indian cricket team. Cricket now is played, throughout the year, and it's challenging, right, for anyone who has a young family, or wants to have a young family, right, in terms of how they manage their personal life versus their professional life. So that's his decision, and we have to respect that decision. In terms of the comparison between Virat Kohli and Ajinkya Rahane, right, I think we've done fine, right, under Rahane in terms of how he's managed his team, how aggressive he has been, and I think, a captain obviously can embody their personality into the squad, but Rahane has proved that we can win without, Virat Kohli's aggression, right? And let's face it, right, the last test match when Tim Paine gave a bit of chat to the Rishabh Pant ended up falling the wrong way, right? So you can win without aggression as well.
Mr. Malhotra, talking about cricket, on cricketing terms, India has the momentum going into this test match. Do they also have the advantage?
Definitely, they have the advantage. Because for me, Rika, the side which puts runs on the board has the chances of winning the match. Because both the sides have got very good bowling attacks. You know, if you look at Australia, they're struggling with the opening pair, and same with India. If the opening pair fires, whichever team's opening pair fires, they have a chances of putting a big total on the board. And if they put a big total on the board, the chances are they might win the series. But as of now, the momentum is with Team India because they've won very convincingly, and they totally outclassed Australia in the last test match. So definitely India has the edge.
Andrew, David Warner returning to the side, a big relief, would you say, for the Australians there? It's not just the skills that he brings in, but also the energy.
Yes, definitely. You know, David Warner's been a big loss, and energy in the field. Obviously, he'll be still a bit hampered in the field, but yeah, just confidence at the top of the order. And as Ashok just said, both teams haven't quite hit their openers, their best opening pair yet. And Dave Warner's got a terrific record back home in Australia. And yeah, I think not just the runs, but the confidence he'll instill through the batting order. If the first wicket falls at 1 for 100 as opposed to 1 for under 10, it's a really, as we'll see now, a middle order. It's not the most confident middle order at the moment. And if they can come in with some runs already on the board, they will really trickle down, I think, and hopefully have a much stronger performance if David Warner plays well.
Well, Rakesh, not just Steve Smith, Australians collectively seem to have lost their hands. There isn't a single score over 200 in this series. Would you say this is the most tame batting lineup, Australian batting lineup that you've ever seen?
Yeah, I think first of all, the matches that we've seen so far has been sort of, the battle of, both batsmen, right, from both teams, right, is whichever team can bat the best against, two fierce bowling lineups seems to be coming on top, right? So I think the introduction of David Warner adds a lot of experience more than anything else. I think that's what Australia have lacked in that, top order, so to speak, experience batting at the top. So that's something that, the Indians will have to, overcome. If we get David Warner out early, that's a big psychological blow, right? But if we don't, that can quite easily swing the match the other way around as well, right? But I think the most exciting part of this series is that so far every test match has thrown up different questions, right? From the second test match without Virat Kohli and introduction of two debutants. Now we enter a third test match where Warner's coming back and another debutant from India and Rohit Sharma coming back. So there's constant different parallels, right, for each test match, which makes this series a really exciting series. And you're questioning actually which way this test match will really go.
Mr. Malhotra, it's not just David Warner, even Rohit Sharma comes back to the team. Do you see him making a big impact in the red ball format? We know what a prolific player he is in white ball cricket. Do you see him make a real impact in the Sydney Test?
Absolutely. He has to prove his critics wrong, Rika, because a lot of people have written him off that he does not perform outside India. As an opener, he scored 300s against South Africa as an opener, but outside India has not been. But for him, it is something he had to prove people wrong. So it might be an opportunity. We know he's a class act, and if he gets going, then, and he likes Australian wickets. He likes the short ball. He likes to pull the ball. So those wickets are tailor-made for somebody like Rohit Sharma. If he survives the first 10 overs, then sky's the limit for Rohit. And as far as Australia is concerned, they don't play well if they don't sledge. They are supposed to be aggressive players, and in this series, up till now, they look very, very timid and listless. There's no aggression, there's nothing, and nobody has tried to go over the top against Ashwin or taken the fight to the opposition, which is unlike Australians. That's why they're losing. If they play aggressively, then you might see a different Australian team. I hope David Warner can ignite that thing.
Andrew, how do you react to that, what Ashok just said, that Australians don't play well if they don't sledge?
I'm not sure about sledging, but I think aggression is definitely the right call. And look, if this series has taught us anything, it's that confidence comes before a fall. I mean, India were looking really good after 2 days, and then in Adelaide, and Australia came out with great aggressive cricket, as Ashok said, and bowled them out for 36 and broke Mohammad Shami's arm. So, you know, that's something that we've seen all too rarely this series. And I agree that in Melbourne, that aggression just wasn't there. And Australia went into it very confident. They didn't deliver, and the Indians really played fantastically. And, you know, this time it's India who's going in confident. So who knows? As has been said, this series has really been topsy-turvy. It's asked different questions each match. Rohit Sharma, great player, but he said he's still got to prove his critics wrong. And Navdeep Saini as well on debut. There's questions there. For Australia, again, Dave Warner and Will Pucovski, if he plays, that it's there's going to be a lot of questions, but it's going to be really exciting to watch from tomorrow. I'm really excited. Rakesh,
which has been your favourite matchup of the series?
Well, I have to say that when you think about you know, the bowlers that Australia have, you know, I think Stark and Cummins have been absolutely amazing to our top order. You know, and you know, if you just look back at that sort of last session where you had to play out, I think it was 10, 15 overs. I think that sort of period, that hour that we had, was probably some of the best Test cricket I've seen in a while. So I think the Australian bowlers to our top order is the battle that if we can overcome. I think like Ashok mentioned, if Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill can see past those first, you know, 10, 15 overs of a new ball, you know, I think that goes a long way towards India winning a match. So for me, the best matchup has been sort of Australia's opening bowlers versus our opening batsmen. You know, it's what Test cricket's all about.
Well, let's listen into Glenn McGrath. Which has been his favourite matchup of the series, and one that he feels is going to define the result of the Test series?
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. I think Ashwin has bowled incredibly well this series. He's doing well against the Australian batsmen. They haven't really come up with an answer against him, and Steve Smith has got out a couple of times as well. So I think that's been the big battle. The unusual thing was Steve Smith not having an impact in this series to date, and especially the way he started in the one day, as he came out after the IPL, said he's found his hands, whatever that means, but that worked for him. Next two matches, even though they were one-day matches, he scored hundreds in each game. So maybe being back here at the Sydney Cricket Ground, he might find his hands again, but that's going to be the big battle. How he faces up against Ashwin. Though that's not to leave out the rest of the Indian bowlers. We saw Jasprit Bumrah bowl him around his legs in the second innings in Melbourne. The way Ciro started, and even today's. So they've got a quality bowling attack. So you can't just focus on one bowler. But Steve Smith is a big wicket for Australia, and that's one guy that India, I guess, have decided if we can get on top of him early, if we can get him out cheaply, it's going to make a big impact on the rest of the innings. So that's a big matchup, Ashwin and Smith, definitely.
Absolutely. That has been the contest everyone's been looking forward to. Mr. Malhotra, coming back to you, the Indian bowlers, particularly Ravi Ashwin, the way he has used the leg side trap to the Australian batsmen, particularly Steve Smith, would you say that has made the contest even more exciting?
It has. You know, we have nullified Smith, especially Ashwin has nullified Smith. That has been the undoing for Australia. And Smith is very good when ball is pitched on the off stump or around middle stump. When ball is pitched outside the leg stump, this is a new territory for him because he can't find his feet, can't find his hand. You know, he has to find his hand and feet both if he has to come good against Ashwin. As of now, Ashwin has the edge. He's got him out once outside the off stump and once outside the leg stump. So he doesn't know which way he has to play. So definitely the turning point in this match has been the undoing or taming of Steve Smith. And that is why India is doing well.
Rakesh, one final question to you. As a fan, a 5-day contest versus a great Test cricket result. What do you want? The first test got over in 2.5 days. Second got over under 4 days. What's your, let me hear your final, word on this.
Yeah. Well, see, for me, the number of days that the Test match lasts doesn't really matter as much to me. It's the contest itself, you know. So, both Test matches have been riveting, entertainment. They've been very hardly fought, yes, India did capitulate, got out for 36 in the first Test match, but it was still a great contest up until that that hour's play, so to speak, right? And so for me, if we can continue with this type of, battle, so to speak, right, where, the bat and the ball are competing at the same sort of point, then I think it makes great viewing, right? It makes great Test cricket. And it's been an absolute, advert for Test cricket, the way these matches have been played. They're very evenly balanced sides. And so long may it continue.
Well, the series is poised at 1-all. 2 more Test matches to go. The third starts in Sydney tomorrow. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me on the show this evening.